Welcome back to Two Converts. I'm Rusty, and that man like unto Moroni over there is.
Jason.
There you go. Well, welcome back, everybody. Boy, do we have a hot one tonight. We record this on Sunday night. We'll be releasing it tomorrow. We'll do our normal little intro. So, just so you know, Jason and I are both converts to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We love the gospel. We try to learn the gospel and share the gospel. We both joined the church when we were in high school and we never looked back. And, our goal here is twofold. We want to help those of you who are investigating the church to find answers from the perspective of two people who joined from the outside. And for those of you that are members and are already converts, we hope to deepen your conversion and reignite or further ignite your testimony. Now, if you are looking for undermining, skeptical content about the church, you're not going to find it here. That's not how we roll. We are 100% in, and we are trying to help establish people's testimonies and deepen their conversion, as we said, to the gospel. Here's how you can help us. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the like and share buttons. Share it with your friends if you like how we approach things. That really helps us. Our goal is to hit 500 subs by the end of the summer, and we are currently, we're big time. We're at 410 right now. There are 410 subscribers to our channel, so we would really appreciate it. If you joined us, join our tribe as we talk about this. We want to hear from you, and your comments may be that little tidbit, that missing puzzle piece that helps somebody complete their conversion picture and take the next step. Now, Jason and I, this is our second time on the air today. Jason, do you want to take 30 seconds and tell everybody what we just did a little bit earlier?
Yeah, we just talked with Stephen Pinecker of the Mormon Book Reviews. He's a evangelical who really loves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we shared with him our vision here for our channel, which we think and we know that you as our audience find to be unique and helpful. So you can check out our interview with Stephen Pinecker on Mormon Book Reviews.
Yeah, and this video that you're watching now, this should be up and live tomorrow on Monday. When did Steven say that our interview was going to drop? Didn't he say that would be Wednesday?
Yeah. This week.
Okay.
Well, when he releases it, maybe tomorrow, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday.
We don't know. We're not in control of that. We're not in control of anything. We're just doing the best we can here, right, Jason?
Right.
Okay.
Amen.
Well, I tried to give you guys a little bit of a warning because this is a big one. Both Jason and I talked earlier. We wanted to make sure we were on the same page as far as how we approach these chapters, Alma 43 through 52, which is the beginning chunk of the war chapters. And as you can see behind me, this depiction of maybe warfare, what it would look like back in the old and horrific melee days. But this is important. Now we're going to, take our normal approach and try to have fun with this and build testimonies with this. But it also, there's some somber topics here, and they are relevant for what we're going through. And we're going to start with Alma chapter 43. You ready to rock and roll, Jason?
I am indeed.
Okay, let's start with 4. Now, just to give you some context, in chapter 43, here's what you need to understand. Many of the wars that were happening were instigated by people who were once Nephites. Now, if we're likening this to ourselves, and this is what you have to do, our dear audience, is recognize there is no place we can hide in the latter days from what these Nephites experienced. In fact, we are told that the whole earth is going to be in commotion. Throughout the scriptures, it talks about the breadth and depth of the wickedness and fighting and war and turmoil and upheavals that will be witnessed during the last days. This is not just spiritual warfare. You need to understand that as we step into this. So I'm going to read verse 4 now and think about this question. Should we fear our neighbors? Okay. Verse 4, for behold, it came to pass that the Zoramites, who had been neighbors and Nephites at some point, became Lamanites. They defected. Therefore, in the commencement of the 18th year, the people of the Nephites saw that the Lamanites were coming upon them. Therefore, they made preparations for war. Yea, they gathered together their armies in the land of Jershon. Let me put this in language that cannot be lost through scripture language. These were their friends and neighbors that abandoned them, that left them, that defected them, went to the enemies and stirred them up and convinced them to come kill the Nephites. This would be like your neighbors going to people who had been your enemies and convincing them, getting them riled up to come kill you. All right, Jason, should we fear our neighbors?
This is where we get into situational ethics, right? We're commanded to love our neighbors. We're also commanded to love our enemies. And those are the commands. So well, first of all, I would say no, we don't ever need to fear anybody. If we're trusting the Lord and we prepare ourselves to protect our families, our property, our country, we actually never need to fear anybody. But this is where things get complicated when you're commanded to love your neighbors and love your enemies, and this is going to take us through some very specific teachings about when you might have to go to war with people and what are the conditions and how you should execute that war. And it's going to be surprising, and it's not the stuff that a lot of people want to hear anymore. But for those of us who defend our nations, this is obligatory.
Jason, could you do me a favor and show them what you carry around your neck right now?
Oh, I took it off my dog tag. Yeah.
Yeah. Just in case you don't know, Jason currently serves in the Navy. I've had many family members also serve in the military. Uh, this is real, and we've been comfortable for so long. And I'll say, I'm here in Utah, and Jason's out in Hawaii, but particularly in Utah, we've been comfortable and left alone for so long that we think for some reason it's always going to be that way, and it will not. Let's move into verse 8 through 10. Do you want to read those, Jason?
Sure. For behold, his designs were to stir up the Lamanites to anger against the Nephites. This he did that he might usurp great power over them, and also that he might gain power over the Nephites by bringing them into bondage.
Okay, so stop real quick. Please, viewers, look at our current situation, both as Americans and members of the church, and just open your eyes and consider the possibility of how people are trying to do this now. The Book of Mormon was written for our day, and this designs that he might usurp great power over them, also that he might gain power over the Nephites by bringing them into bondage. Okay, just consider. All right, 9 through 10, Jason.
Well, I mean, I'll just say, I mean, it's hard right now to think about this as Americans, but of course, I'm only speaking for myself and not on behalf of the United States. But you look at October 7th and this almost a year-long war. This war between Israel and Hamas and also Iran has been going on for 10 months. There are still hostages that are in bondage in the Gaza Strip by Hamas. And people say, oh, well, Hamas they're the ones that have been persecuted. Well, actually, if you go back and look at their strategy, they actually uncovered their war plans for October 7th, which was to conquer Israel and to put the Jews in bondage to Hamas, to make the Jews basically the slaves of Hamas. And that's what October 7th was all about. I mean, look at the tactics they used, the way they murdered, raped, brutalized people. That was it. Gained power over them by bringing them into bondage.
And
Okay, so what do you do?
and
That's
America, yeah. And Americans right now, at least on American soil, for the most part, aren't having to deal with being prisoners of war, right? But
yeah.
there's another point in the Book of Mormon where the Nephites express that they were in bondage to the Nephites because they were exacted a 50% tax to the Lamanites, which they considered a bondage.
Yeah. That's a form of economic bondage for sure.
Yeah, right there. Okay, 9 and 10.
And now the design of the Nephites was to support their lands and their houses and their wives and their children, that they might preserve them from the hands of their enemies, and also that they might preserve their rights and their privileges, yea, and also their liberty, that they might worship God according to their desires. For they knew if they should fall into the hands of the Lamanites, that whosoever should worship God in the spirit and in truth, the true and the living God, the Lamanites would destroy.
American history was amazing. And the founding fathers fought and bled and died to give us these rights of property rights, of religious worship rights, of, all of these things, freedom from taxes and oppression and the wiles and dictates of a dictator. And I think many Americans assume that that was a one-time fight, it's over, and now we don't have to worry about that ever again. Evil does not sleep. Evil is always seeking to find the crack and take back over. If you were
Yeah.
were kind of fostering this delusion that America is always going to be the same as it was during the founding without having a period of sacrifice to preserve those liberties, just like the Nephites, you are not seeing history. You're not seeing clearly, and you're not seeing what's happening to us right now. Jason, any thoughts you want to bring
I'll
up?
add very quickly. We're going to get there, but there is when we start studying Captain Moroni, there is some verses that indicate Captain Moroni was always preparing for war. Does
Mhm.
that mean that he liked to kill people and he was a warmonger?
We are
Absolutely
getting
not.
to that.
But the Book of Mormon is it's a realistic text that if you want peace, you want stability, you want deterrence, you have to vigilantly prepare for war. The Book of Mormon's understanding is that the preparation for war is what actually preserves peace. And this is opposite of a lot of the voices that we're hearing today that if we don't spend money and time and our energy and treasure on preparing for war, then I mean, there's some wacky ideas out there that our enemies will just they'll be like, oh, don't worry about it. Well, there's no need to fight America or fight our friends. But it's the Book of Mormon's philosophy is that's not true at all. The most righteous people like Captain Moroni, he doesn't want war, but he's constantly preparing for it because he understands the reality of human nature.
And something else you need to realize, and this is an ugly concept, but it's a truth. If you are living righteous, you need to accept the idea for that fact alone, people want to kill you.
Yeah, that's true.
I
That's true.
mean, a
That's
Malachiah swore to drink the blood of Moroni. He
yeah,
was so frustrated with Moroni's wisdom in preparing his people and thwarting his plans. That hatred reached such a fever pitch that he swore to drink Moroni's blood. And if
yeah.
if you think I had the privilege of serving in Missouri, which many of you know, I wasn't too kind to church in history, there is hatred in the hearts of even fellow Americans against members of the church. Many of them would like to see you dead. And that's the reality of it. And that may sound harsh. That's the reality of it. And so this idea of, oh, if I disarm, nobody will have a reason to come against me, that is that's delusional. That's beyond crazy. That shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the spiritual war that we're engaged in and human nature. Anything you want to
Yep.
add to that, Jason?
Oh, thank you. I mean, this is what the direction the Book of Mormon's coming at it, and I think it's realistic.
I mean, look at the example of the Book of Mormon. The Lamanites wanted to kill the Nephites for what? For lies, because they were told growing up that the Nephites robbed them. Even if the Nephites did, would that justify them wanting to wipe out a race? No, but that was what the Lamanites wanted to do, generation after generation. So, okay, Moroni takes command of the Nephite armies at 25 years of age. Now we're going to see some more stuff in verse 19. And when the armies of the Lamanites saw that the people of Nephi, or that Moroni, had prepared his people with breastplates and with arm shields, yea, and also shields to defend their heads, and also that they were dressed with thick clothing, this goes on. They were kind of astonished at this. But what are we learning here? Now, Jason, you already alluded to this, but all of this armor and all of these weapons, did this just appear out of nowhere only after the threat was there?
No, Moroni was preparing long in advance, and if we liken the scriptures unto ourselves, I think this is a teaching that we do need a robust defense industry, that we need to be, this is, uh, ancient military technology. Now we're living in the 21st century, but we do need, there is something moral and something righteous about staying ahead of our enemies as far as military technology. The Book of Mormon does not apologize for Captain Moroni and his people having more advanced military technology than their enemies.
Yeah. And my side of that is I completely agree that the United States should have a strong military, but I would take this down to more granular level and say that the responsibility falls upon each and every one of us to prepare what we can on our
Yeah.
own. Training,
Sure.
tools, defense. We're going to learn about fortifying homes. President Nelson, in a talk not too long ago, talked about the importance of fortifying our homes. And he did say spiritually, but he also said and physically.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's all part of it.
23. Oh, did you want to say something else, Jason?
No, that's all part of it. Thank you.
Okay, 23 through 24. Let's consider this question. Was the word of the Lord to the prophet to run away from battle and be pacifists? So, verse 23 and 24. Do you want to read that, Jason?
Sure. But it came to pass, as soon as they had departed into the wilderness, Moroni sent spies into the wilderness to watch their camp. And Moroni also, knowing of the prophecies of Alma, sent certain men unto him, desiring him that he should inquire of the Lord whither the armies of the Nephites should go to defend themselves against the Lamanites. And it came to pass that the word of the Lord came unto Alma, and Alma informed the messengers of Moroni that the armies of the Lamanites were marching round about in the wilderness, that they might come over into the land of Manti, that they might commence an attack upon the weaker part of the people. And those messengers went and delivered the message unto Moroni.
So, again, our question was the word of the Lord to the prophet to run away from the battle to be pacifist, but no. So, it's interesting here. We're going to talk about Moroni a little bit and what kind of man he was. But he didn't say, oh, war is a gross and wicked and vile thing. We shouldn't taint our prophet with these kind of ideas. No, he knew, let's go to the Lord and inquire what we need to do to defend our people. So, I think it's just because people have been protected for so long that they start kind of, and and war should be viewed as a terrible thing, but it's a reality we have to face, and prophets are utilizing this. And as we pointed out in the past, almost every prophet throughout the Book of Mormon and even ancient and other ancient scripture, they ended up in battle and in war. Look at David, who Jason's descended from, right? He was known for that. But not desiring blood and living peacefully is the higher, holier way. However, it is not considered more righteous to be pacifist when the Lord sanctions war and commands it. Because we live in a fallen world, we have to deal with this reality. There are people right now that want to kill us. And it's whether it's for
Yeah.
the color of your skin, your eye color, your religion, your economic success, your nationality, no matter how nice you are to these people, they will not stop. And if you refuse to engage war when it becomes necessary, that is no longer considered righteous. Thoughts, Jason?
Yeah, and the motivations are the same as we just read. What were the Lamanites' motivation? To put the Nephites in bondage, to have power over them. I mean, all these principles are the same. I mean, right now we're still reeling from jihadism. Well, what's jihadism? It's not just crazy people. It's
Mhm.
that they want to dominate and put, you know, different religions in bondage. People of
Yeah,
different
to
bonded to them. It's all the desire to establish an empire. And
Jason,
that's the
if I
same.
may on that real
Oh, go
quick,
ahead.
you may be saying it, but I wanted to get this out.
Yeah.
If you think the approach with, for instance, Islam is, oh, well, we're tolerant of other religions, so surely they must be the same. You don't understand what Sharia law is, right?
Well, yeah, I mean
Mhm.
there's different interpretations of Islam, right?
Sure.
Uh, and I cannot, there's no blanket there, but there are imperialists that they want to establish an empire over you. And then there's Muslims who are peaceful and that they want to live in harmony with other religions. And they have found it just by their nature and their character and the way that they understand the purpose of religion is that they should live in neighborly kindness with other religions. But then there's but so it's not even so much the religion, it's this desire that we see in the Book of Mormon of this desire to establish dominance over another people and to put another people into bondage. That's what we're dealing with, at least with jihadists or other imperial, it's the same thing throughout history. If you want to conquer somebody, establish your empire over them. There's different motivations. They could be religious, they could be secular, could be ethnic, racial. It's all the Book of Mormon is pretty universal in that way. That's basically the root. I want to conquer this territory and put these people in subjection. So it's the same thing.
All right, we're going to move into verse 45 through 47. Again, we're in Alma 43. I just called it this. I don't know if there's a technical term for you, but I called it the battle at Sidon River, which sounds right to me. Right,
Okay.
this war that
Yeah.
happens there. So verse 45, nevertheless, the Nephites were inspired by a better cause, for they were not fighting for monarchy nor power, but they were fighting for their homes and their liberties, their wives and their children, and their all, yea, for their rights of worship and their church. And they were doing that which they felt was the duty which they owed to their God for the Lord. So imagine this. They felt it was their duty to God to try to preserve these things that he had granted them. For the Lord had said unto them and also unto their fathers that inasmuch as ye are not guilty of the first offense, neither the second, ye shall not suffer yourselves to be slain by the hands of your enemies. And here is what I really want all of you to absorb, memorize, understand, believe is verse 47. And again, the Lord has said that ye shall defend your families even unto bloodshed. Therefore, for this cause were the Nephites contending with the Lamanites to defend themselves and their families and their lands, their country and their rights and their religion. I think many people just say, "Oh, if you don't need to fight if it's unless it's for your life." They're talking about their lands, their rights, their countries, all this. Jason, are we commanded to fight in war and bloodshed?
Yes, we are when these conditions are met, right? When we're fighting for these particular things.
And
Um,
I think many people will think, oh, well, not the first or second offense. I don't interpret you not being guilty of the first offense, meaning the first deaths, right? A lot of people point to the anti-Nephi Lehites as, oh, they went and laid down their lives, and that was the higher way. They were the exception to the rule, right? If somebody tells you we're going to come attack you, I think that's an offense. If they start mobilizing to come attack you, I think that's an
yeah,
offense. I think at that point, you are now not only justified, but it is your now responsibility to be prepared for that fight and to engage in it.
yeah. I mean, this is entirely self-defense, but sometimes you have to make a preemptive strike in order to set conditions of deterrence so that your enemy backs down and doesn't continue to desire to fight you. I mean, the goal is just is stability and protecting your family, your property, your lands, your country. So you do what's necessary. There's not these like, oh, let them just, bomb us and kill us a couple times and then we'll start defending ourselves. No, you defend yourself immediately. That's what we actually see the practical application of these revelations in the actual behavior of Captain Moroni.
Well
He's
done.
he's not a, offensive. I mean, he's preparing defenses, but he will also if he sees the conditions that are going to bring about peace between him and his enemy, he's going to go after it. He's going to go after it viciously. He's not going to stop until he gets, the conditions that he needs.
Absolutely. Please, if you're watching this, again, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your comments. We know that many of you maybe served in the military and have seen things and have witnessed human behavior. Please share with us your insights below. Okay, now we're going to tee up Moroni a little bit and I think set the example for us. And I actually alluded to this with my intro with Jason, but in chapter 48, verse 14 through 17, Jason, do you actually want to read that?
Yeah, so 48, 14 through 17.
Correct.
Now the Nephites were taught to defend themselves against their enemies, even to the shedding of blood if it were necessary. Yea, and they were also taught never to give an offense. Okay. Yea, and never to raise the sword except it were against an enemy, except it were to preserve their lives. Very clear principles. Mm-hmm. And this was their faith, that by doing so, God would prosper them in their land, or in other words, if they were faithful in keeping the commandments of God, this is one of them, that he would prosper them in the land. Yea, warn them to flee or to prepare for war according to their danger. And also that God would make it known unto them whither they should go to defend themselves against their enemies. And by so doing, the Lord would deliver them. So sometimes it's not just defending, this piece of land or this home. Sometimes you need to go abroad to defend yourself against your enemies. Sometimes you need to defeat your enemy in your enemy's backyard before they come to you. There's a lot of misinterpretation in the Book of Mormon about that too. Look at Teancum. Teancum is a hero because he's going deep in the enemy's territory and he's killing the enemy's leader in the enemy's territory. Sometimes you have to take the fight to your enemy.
Well, and let's call it what it was. That was an assassination.
It was an assassination. Yes. Yeah. Which we've been hearing in the news, right?
Yeah.
Doing so, yeah, whither they should go to defend themselves against their enemies. And by so doing, the Lord would deliver them. And this was the faith of Moroni, and his heart did glory in it, not in the shedding of blood, but in doing good, in preserving his people, yea, in keeping the commandments of God, yea, and resisting iniquity. Yea, verily, verily, I say unto you, if all men had been and were and ever would be like unto Moroni, behold, the very powers of hell would have been shaken forever. Yea, the devil would never have power over the hearts of the children of men.
So, Jason, I'm going to get on a soapbox for a little bit. Some people look at Moroni and look down on him. They think he was a warmonger and all this kind of stuff, and that he wasn't really this great righteous example. If he was that faithful, he wouldn't be killing people. I think that is one of the most naive and self-righteous in what the true definition of that is, and we talked about that before. And what's the word I'm looking for? Just privileged, ridiculously privileged mindset that you can approach this with. It's easy. It's a lot easier to be righteous when you're completely comfortable. You've got no threats to your existence. You're surrounded by abundance. And, you just really have to master a little bit of your self-control to live righteously. But when you are slogging through mud and blood and trying to protect yourself, and you are living under constant duress and stress for the threat of being killed, and you worried about your buddies being killed and your family's at home and what's going on with them, and not losing his integrity and his moral compass and all of this. I mean, don't talk about how Moroni was really wicked or something like that. Mormon knew what he was talking about when he included this. If all men had been and were and ever would be like unto Moroni, behold, the very powers of hell would have been shaken forever. That's a true statement, right? Any thoughts on that?
No, we need to lift up the Book of Mormon has a vision of the saintliness of the military commander. That is a profession in society that we should aspire to. It's not for everybody, obviously, but it's an honorable, righteous, godly profession to be a military commander. And that's just, if you can't accept that, then you don't really believe in the Book of Mormon. Sorry. It's just the reality of how, but we should be developing those who are, who have those characteristics, to develop them into military commanders is a great and noble calling.
Absolutely. Okay, chapter 49, verse 5. Now, at this time, the chief captains of the Lamanites were astonished exceedingly because of the wisdom of the Nephites in preparing their places of security. Even the wicked ascribed wisdom to the Nephites for preparing to defend themselves, right? And that's one of these
Yeah.
principles. We don't need to take a lot of time there, but even they recognize the wisdom of it. Okay, verse 50, 21 through 22. Or chapter 50, verse 21 through 22. And we see that these promises have been verified to the people of Nephi, for it has been their quarrelings and their contentions, yea, their murderings and their plunderings, their idolatry, their whoredoms. Think about this again. What are we seeing in our own country right now? And what culture are we fostering within our own borders? Their murderings, their plunderings, their idolatry, their whoredoms, and their abominations, which were among themselves, which brought upon them their wars and their destructions. We are we are cooking this recipe right now in our own borders if you're watching the United States and even in Utah. And those who were faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord were delivered at all times, whilst thousands of their wicked brethren have been consigned to bondage or to perish by the sword or to dwindle in unbelief and mingle with the Lamanites. Jason, any thoughts on this recipe or this formula that brings destruction to people?
Yeah, I mean, I hate, I hate to say this, but where are the sources of our national weakness as Americans, right? I mean, you're only really responsible for your own country in this sense, but I worry about the state of our education and our
Mm-hmm.
higher education. That our higher education system is, just has no moral compass. It's just anarchic and it's unrealistic and not every department, right? I mean, there's different departments, right? But there's the way that we're teaching our people, our citizens, uh, can actually cause them to become weaker and become susceptible to our enemies that are after us, you know, and I worry about that a lot. When plunderings, idolatry, whoredoms, abomination, when those things are just, when you have higher education campuses and that's the norm, when we should be building up our national strength.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what we need to do because that's yeah these are the conditions here. It's consigned to bondage, perish by the sword, dwindle in unbelief. Those are all consequences of national weakness.
Okay. Chapter 51, verse 21. And thus Moroni put an end to those kingmen. Now listen to this again. Consider this in our time. It's so easy to read scriptures and disassociate from it and think, oh, that's a different people. That's just unrealistic. We're not going to deal with that. Listen to this. There was a faction of group within their free government that wanted to destabilize that free government and completely alter it. And Moroni had the inspiration and took the initiative to go after these kingmen, that there were not any known by the appellation of kingmen. You can replace that with different terms, whatever term you want to use today for people who are trying to change our system of government or fundamentally transform it. And thus he put an end to the stubbornness and the pride of those people who profess the blood of nobility, but they were brought down to humble themselves like unto their brethren and to fight valiantly for their freedom from bondage. Consider this again. There may come a time, or I might even say there will come a time, even in our own country, where we have to fight against people, the factions that are trying to transform the government and take away our God-given freedoms. That is a heavy concept to consider. But when you swear to protect the Constitution, Jason, it's from enemies both.
It's foreign and domestic, right? So the Constitution is alive, and it's our loyalty is not placed in a party or a human being. Our loyalty is to the Constitution, to an inspired system that our founders created, and that our people over time have put different amendments in. But the core of the system and the separation of powers and the inability, the way that the entire Constitution was designed was to deter tyranny and tyrants. And so does it sometimes make our government very ineffective and very slow? Absolutely. But that's the strength of it, because it's it's designed to prevent tyranny, to prevent bondage.
Yeah,
And
to protect us from ourselves in a way, right?
yeah, and that, but that's, every military person, military officer, that's the oath. And you can see that in Captain Moroni. Like he's not doing this for his own political gain. He's just doing this out of love for his people, love for his country, love for his family. I mean, that's why he's just so noble. He's a military commander. That's who he is. He's not like, oh, maybe one day I'll run
Mhm.
for office based on my military background. No, he's just a military commander to the end, and then he retires and he just goes to his own home in peace,
Yeah.
delivered a peaceful, prosperous nation to his people.
Well, a couple quick final thoughts to wrap this up. One is every episode we like to try to point out something that helps cement your testimony of this. Joseph Smith was an uh, practically illiterate farm boy, and he's writing about complex battle and war strategy that would have been beyond his grasp, beyond his
Yeah.
training. And that is people who have grown up in the military and studied war for their whole lives will see truth in this and recognize there is no way that this person who was unexperienced in this was able to write these things and develop these thoughts. Joseph Smith did not write the Book of Mormon. It is true. It is a record of ancient Americans that were a branch of Israel.
Yeah.
Also, as far as practicality for all of us, the Book of Mormon clearly warns us about things that will be happening in the last day. These chapters were included for us. We should heed them and recognize it's not only talking about spiritual warfare, but also physical. We should be preparing ourselves, our families, our communities for physical threats as well. And
Yeah.
if you can't see that in the Book of Mormon, you're not reading it or you don't believe it. Anyway, I know this was kind of a heavy episode. We got to wrap it up here, Jason. Is there any final last thing in 10 seconds you want to share?
Yeah, just look at the Book of Mormon as a whole. It's got patterns. It's talking about a whole range of society and country and populations. It has a message. Don't just pick out these and cherry pick,
Yeah.
what you like out of the Book of Mormon. It
Yep.
has a whole message for our day.
Thank you, Jason. Well, until next time, we love you guys. Stay immersed in the scriptures, deep in your conversion. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.